Okay, Conan Exiles. Um, who doesn't love Conan, right? This one, it's a little bit of an age to it. It's been in full release for quite some time. There are some DLCs that have come out. I like it. Has a lot of mechanics to it. Crafting is deep. You have tons of DLCs that have a lot of different crafting styles. Open world is the crafted. Uh, it's the same all the time. There's nothing procedural as far as I remember it. It has spawning, kind of, in my opinion, things respawn, which is annoying. But you have a lot of leeway in that you can adjust these things. You can adjust everything from time, from being rated, if you're going to be rated at all, how much you need to eat and drink all the time. It'll also have a skill system to it, so you can adjust different skill based to be either a sorcerer, or you can be more of a someone that uses bow, or someone that uses axe or whatever. So you have a lot of depth in order to adjust how the kind of type Conan character you want to be. And then of course you can take slaves, thralls, so to speak. You break their back on the wheel, and then they do your bidding, or they fight for you. So you can then have a bunch of people guarding your area from raids. So it's kind of cool. And plus, it has just this epic Conan type music. It just feels right. It's kind of like you're watching the movie all over again, but you can be the beefy Conan. Um, Typical, you eat, die, you drop everything, you have to go back and pick it up, things like that. But combat is fairly deep, in my opinion. And you can adjust it so, you don't die in one hit from this giant spider, but you can actually do something. Okay, Mist. Mist is that you're the lone survivor. There's some kind of zombie, weird ghoul-like creatures that comes at night, and you go out in this handcrafted world and just explore, pick up stuff, and go to different areas. And then you can build your base in many different various, I wouldn't say biomes, but things that has more buildings or less buildings. So it's kind of like State of Decay, sort of, but then with a little bit crafting, you can find people that can be part of your clan that you put them to work. Last I played it, it was kind of janky in my opinion. There's not much of a story there if I remember it. That kind of being adjusted right now. Maybe that's a little bit different. But I put it on C because it was fun enough for time, and then I kind of got bored out of breaking into cars, and there was always some ghoul-like creature in one of the cabins, and I had to fight that. It was interesting enough. It just wasn't all that super fun. Pretty mid. Soul Mask. So you're a chief. You have this special magic mask, and it has full crafting. It's decent graphics. You can pick pretty much up anything. You can build it. Um, it has all those features. Plus, you can then also go pick up tribal members that you first beat up, and then you bring them back and heal them so they become your friend because you're using your soul mask power to convince them to be part of your tribe. That's all good. It seems to have a lot of deep in it, but it's kind of janky. Trying to just give orders to make your tribal members do stuff. Oh, that felt so. There was so much clicking and things that didn't necessarily make sense that I didn't enjoy it as much. Didn't seem to have much of a story either. It's still in early access. All of that can be fleshed out. But I was going to an area, and the spawning is one of those things. So I'll go into an area to get some guys to bring back to my cabin so they can start doing stuff for me. And I was attacked by the same dog going back and forth, and that was really annoying. Plus, your soul mask runs out of energy, so you can't convince them to be on your side, or you can't. There's a way how you can see, kind of sort of in Aska, you can just use this function and you can see things that you can pick up, or the warmth of living creatures or something like that. But I was just blasting away with that, thinking that it was unlimited. Nah, you have to have some kind of rock that powers it up again, and I guess I'm gonna have to go back to it and be a little bit fair. But I didn't enjoy it as much, probably because a lot of the mechanics felt like it was just an extra 2 minute steps that I didn't enjoy. Enshrouded. Now, Enshrouded is pretty good. It's more on the cartoonish side. It is crafted. I don't think it's any procedural parts of it. The graphic style is awesome. The animation portion is pretty fluid. It is really meant to be combat. And of course, you die, you drop everything, you have to go back. Food, eating, combat is pretty deep. You have a lot of different options. I do think that it has a skill-based system too. A little bit on the communal side in the case that you can unlock these guys that then become part. But they don't really seem to do anything for you, if I remember correctly when I was playing it. Again, I need to go back and probably play it a little bit further. But they were just giving me advice on what to do rather than just doing it. But that was no biggie. I enjoy playing it. A lot of crafting options as far as armor and weapons. No Man's Sky. This one is great. It didn't start out great. They made him a lot of promises, and there was a lot of people that pretty much returned the game. But over the years, and it's been a lot of years, they have improved this game tremendously. So you're in space, and you can get spacecrafts. You don't really build a spacecraft per se, but you can trade yourself to a better spacecraft, and then the inside of it, you can then, depending on what kind of size spacecraft it is, you can pretty much put in all the things that you want for it, from shields to how to break down mining and things like that. It is open world. It is procedural. I think they are improving how the worlds are done procedurally, in that planets are all the same, right? If you find a swampy planet with a lot of big mountains, everything is big mountains and swampy. I think they're trying to make it more like biomes within the overall planet. So when you get there, you're actually going to have areas that are a little bit different from each other. They have improved it graphic wise a lot. It is very cartoonish. There's not much of a story. There are some about some kind of AI that's, you can befriend and move around with. But it's, that's not really the thing. It's you pretty much going around in the world, and just finding these cool little planets. And then you have a pretty decent system where you can just build these small little planet bases and then grab portal over to them and grab the kind of crafting materials that you need for it. I don't think that there was any food, eating and drinking. I could be wrong. Death, that's the usual stuff. You die, I think you drop everything. And combat was very simplistic. Most of it is just shooting. You don't really gonna go around whacking people, but it was deep enough. You can unlock companions, like big robot thing that you can have as a companion. That was kind of cool. Yeah, and enjoy it. And they keep on improving it for free. You don't pay for the DLCs. They just add more features all the time. Satisfactory. That is an awesome game. This is a little bit different. It is definitely crafting. You are crafting a perfect factory. The story is that you are put there by a corporation to find the raw materials and to send it back. So you start out with the basic kind of raw materials, and then you have to organize your factors to pump out the more advanced ones. There is combat. There's no raiding mechanics where they come and invade you, but you will come across nasty spider-like creatures, boar-like creatures, things like that. And you have to fight the environment. And you get guns eventually. So the crafting there is you can craft all the different pieces, explore the world, and find out a little bit more about the story. The story is not super deep. It's just kind of fun and goofy, a little bit cartoonish. Completely handcrafted world. Graphics, very decent. Survival mechanics, very simplistic. You don't need to eat and drink all the time. You basically eat just to get health back. Death, um, I, I think you dropped your stuff if I remember correctly, but not the things that you hold. Combat, very simplistic. It's just shooting basically. Sometimes in the beginning you have this stun baton that you can smack with. That's it. Most of it is about the factory making, the logistics of that. So it's not much on the survival part, but more on the crafting, building the factory part. Dawn of Defiance. That's set in Greece, ancient Greece. You are a hoplite kind of type person. You are gonna come across typical Greek mythology creatures, such as minotaurs and whatnot. I played it for a while until I died in a cave, and then I didn't want to run back because I didn't have anything else. It's very simplistic. Crafting is all there, the basic stuff, snapping pieces together, crafting better items and weapons, go hunting, find hides, make leather, yada yada yada. So it's kind of this that standard boilerplate stuff. There wasn't much of a story in there as far as I could feel, but it was early access, so it still had all those pieces just fine. It seems to be a completely crafted world. All the different quest pieces, areas you can go to, the Oracle, etc. They're all in the same kind of spots, but it looked decent. A little bit on a bland grayish side color-wise, but it's supposed to be like ancient Greece, I suppose. A little bit stilted as far as the mechanics of animation. Nothing to really brag about when it comes to graphic-wise, but it was decent. All of those were decent. You had the regular food, eat, sleep, death mechanic, drop all the stuff. Yes, I dropped everything in a cave and didn't want to go back and beat up whatever killed me. So all of that is decent enough. Combat was not too terrible. You had bows, you had spear, and you had those big brown shields, etc. Nothing bad. I think they're fleshing that out more, and it was just a recent update, so I'm sure that's going to be a little bit better. Palworld. I'm going to put that as a solid A tier. Well, maybe a little bit on B side. It is your basic pocket monster kind of type deal. You are throwing a ball, you're capturing monsters, you're riding them, you're fighting with them. You have arena battles, and you can build yourself a base, several bases, mine certain things, build and craft, housing, and then put your pals to work. So they will do the work for you. That was a little bit jankier before, but I think they improved that. There's really not much of a story. You go to these things, you battle these bosses, you progress. Level progression used to be too fast before. Now they have kind of slowed it down a little bit. There are some awesome pals out there. The skill-based system is basically over time they kind of just increase in skill the more they are doing stuff. You can be raided by monsters, and if you're lucky enough you can capture some of those monsters before all your pals kill them. You can certainly try. That's one way of getting some monsters. So you have all the functionality of pretty much being the pocket monster type game, right? And of course Nintendo hates them for that. My understanding is that just came out with a recent update and added some more places to go, so they are definitely growing it. It's not going to be an S tier for me because it feels like when you get to the end of the world, you don't have much else to do. Maybe that will be in the end when they're going to have the end game but it didn't feel like it was all there. It was fun up to a point, and then you kind of got like, I done everything. Planet Crafter. This one is you're dropped on a planet, you crash land, of course. Why wouldn't you? And then you have to start scrounging for different items, build them up. I'm putting it on C towards a little bit of a D because it was a crafted world. You had the standard boilerplate crafting, like they have the assets for all that stuff. Graphics, it wasn't that special. Nothing out of the ordinary. Survival mechanics is just the standard boilerplate stuff. Food, eat. You have to have air, so when you go out and explore in the world, the only difference I think with a Planet Crafter was that you also, as a mechanic, you can terraform it. So you can actually make it so that you can breathe on it eventually. So there are certain things and mechanics that you put in the ground and build that make that happen. So eventually you can turn this marsh looking planet into green with water everywhere, etc. So that's kind of cool idea. It really is. But it came to a point where I had done it that it just felt like I had done it a million times, and I never really got to enjoy doing the terraforming part. There was just story elements there that was kind of missing for me to hook me up, to really put the hooks in me. And then we have Rift Breaker. Is that? Yeah. So in this game, you are a lady and a robot. She's a scientist. And you're dropped off on this planet in order to build a rift, a gate. And through that gate, so you can bring in humanity to just pick up the resources. They have released a bunch of DLCs already. This is the third person. It's more on the crafting side, kind of like Satisfactory, but more on the combat side. So you're pretty much building all the buildings, and all the crafting you do is to give you better weapons in order to progress in the story, and also in order to build up your factory so you have more ammunition, and then you put in the tower. So it's a little bit like tower defense too. Open world, it's all crafted. I don't think there's any procedural part of it. You have a bunch of biomes that you can go to, but I don't think they're... Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is kind of like procedural in how they create the biomes. Yeah, I need to play that again in order to determine. Yeah, they probably have that. Graphic style, very bright, very cool looking on the cartoonish side. Animation, it has all the different cool weapons that you can use. And of course, it's more RTS in the that you have all these monsters coming at you with hit points that you then shoot, blow up, etc. Slash. Survival mechanics, you don't have to eat and drink. It's not that kind of game. You repair. You have repair skill functions that you build into your big robot. Death, you blow up and then you respawn, I do believe, if I'm not entirely mistaken. Yeah. Story, there's a lot of story elements there that drives you forward. There's a lot of banter and dialogue between the AI robot that you're in and the scientist that you play. I enjoy it, and they keep putting out more DLCs to just in order to flesh out more areas that you can explore. Smalland. Smalland is actually a pretty cool game that's going to be very close to S tier to me. The story mechanics of that one is actually pretty fun. You're a little elfish dude, tomte, not, or whatever you want to call it, a little gnome, right? You have tiny little antennas, and your queen is sick. So you have to go out and explore the world. The world seems to be some kind of forest preserve that was abandoned by humans for some reason. Now you don't know who the humans are. You just find the things, like the cans on the ground, the bottle caps. You find a parking lot with cracked asphalt. You find all these things. So you, as a player, kind of enjoy the idea of these small little creatures that don't know anything about humankind, that think that was just deserted for some reason, the humankind died out. That's not really implied. It's more like they just left there for some reason, they didn't come back. So you can find a huge, like a huge car. You can find all the different bottles and whatnot that's left over. And then you have insects. So you have the ants that you attack. You have insects. You have ladybugs that you can turn into like packing animals, etc. And of course, you can also turn. There's a bird that you can eventually get. You can ride wasps. You can do icky spiders, etc. And as you make them part of your area, you can then build these fantastic little fortresses up in the trees. So you have all these cool things. There are story elements, and they keep adding to it. I just enjoyed playing it, to be honest. It's not fully super S tier because there was just something there that, when you got to a certain point. But I need to go back to it because they've added so many other areas that kind of fleshes out the story even more. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Space for Sale. I'm gonna put that to the side. I haven't played that enough to be fair to it. So let's do Sons of the Forest. I'm gonna put that a C to a D. There's nothing wrong with a horror crafting game per se. It's just that the spawning mechanics in this game is just boorish. The story is corny. And I just never really got into it to enjoy it. I know that there are people out there that love it. And there's something about it. But your companion is kind of like a dorky dummy. The only cool part is when you find this mutated lady that you can then make part of your group. But fighting mutated cannibals in every single corner just gets boring to me. So the exploration part was just not fun. The story elements, I went all the way to the ends. I know the story. You're pretty much going to hell, it feels like. And then there's this way where you can see the future or something like that. I don't know. It just didn't appeal to me, the whole thing. It's based, of course, on the Forest, and I can understand why people like it. I just couldn't get into it. It wasn't that fun. Starfield. I added this because I kind of want to trash it. That's gonna be a D for me. It's not really F. I liked it in the beginning, and then I learned to not like it. And the reason is because they use the same engine as they have done since Oblivion and going forward. They just improved it so it looks a little bit better. The ragdoll effects and all that is jank. Everything just feels like not cool. It's interesting that you can put together your own ship as you go and explore these different story, but it's not fun. It's handcrafted, all the different world as far as I know. It is an RPG more on that side, so you have those kind of mechanics. Crafting, it's kind of sort of, if you have played a Fallout 4, is that you can craft up the different weapons that you find and add features to it. But the reality is that it's pretty empty. You could call it Fallout in space, Fallout 4 in space, without the comedy story, the storytelling. It just wasn't that fun. When I found out in the very end what the whole thing was about with those multiverses, at first it sounded really like a cool idea, and then I realized that they kind of didn't have a good story, they didn't have a good idea, so they just did that kind of repeated mechanic in order for people to just hit the hamster wheel. And other than making your own ship, I just didn't find it fun. I tried to build a factory, but it's just built on a very poor engine, in my opinion. So I couldn't even make that fun. It was better, and it felt funner, if that's even a word, in something like Fallout 4, which I really should have here. Well, I don't, so that's just it. Subnautica, I'm gonna put both of them together, and the reason is very simple. They are kind of very similar. The original Subnautica is much better. Yeah, it should definitely be on an A tier here. Uh, and Below Zero was not necessarily this as good, but it kind of have the same mechanics. So you can play them independently. You don't have to play Subnautica in order to enjoy playing Below Zero. Good story mode ish. Um, Very creepy environments. You are underwater a heck of a lot. Below Zero is a little bit more on the surface. And when you see those big, huge Leviathan type underwater sea monsters, whatever, it can be kind of scary because all you do have is a knife. That's it. And I'm going to bring it down to a little bit more on the B because of that. Open world, entirely crafted. You can craft all the different pieces and bases that you want. You can unlock different features in order to proceed to the next part of the story. Survival mechanics, you have to eat and drink pretty much all the time, but you can adjust that so it's not as predominant. Death, you drop things, you go back, you pick it up. I do believe, yes. Combat, virtually non-existent. You have some things like a freeze ray, you have your knife. The only thing that I never cared for is that as you go deeper, it just gets oppressively dark. Even worse so with Below Zero, to the point that you couldn't really. I mean, you were deep. It should be creepy. It should be really cool, but it just got, especially in Below Zero, it just got so dark and oppressive that you kind of felt like you were missing all that. Soundscape though is marvelous. It just really makes that game. If you haven't played it, you definitely should. Sunkenland. Okay, so this is another one of those acid kind of type game. C to a D. Something in the future. You have these platforms that are built. You have these islands. You are going deep underwater to find things. You can craft things and build things. Yeah, that's pretty much how I felt when I was doing it. Not much of a story. Very asset-like in the case of the graphics itself, animations. It's standard boilerplate. You can enjoy it for a while. You can get your boat. You can go on raid. You can fight pirates. You can go trade. It's kind of futuristic after the end of the world because when you go underwater, you can see all the roads and the houses and whatnot. So it's kind of like a water world called Sunkenland without you having gills and can be underwater for a very long time. Towers of Agasta. Now this one is on the communal side. You do have crafting. You can build things. You do have farming pieces. I want to put this right now. Oh, I moved everything around. That was silly of me. I want to put it on a B because it has potentials, but right now it feels like it doesn't have the story behind it. It has a cool feature in that you can unlock these biomes and then kind of nurse it into life in different tiers, like a forest biome with different creatures that come in. And they have adjusted aggressiveness of stuff and how often you need to eat and drink and whatnot. So that's all good. Combat is very rudimentary. It feels like you have the basic hitting, basic shooting. The decay of your tools is almost on Aska level. It just gets very annoying when you can't repair stuff and things just break, even the highest end. So you go and you scrounge together iron and whatnot and coal, things that you don't find a tremendous amount of. You build your tool and it just seems to decay very quickly. You smack things, it breaks. That part was not fun. I know that they have made a lot of different updates to improve things. I'm just waiting for them to add a way to repair them because it's kind of like Aska. I love to play the game, but the tediousness of having tools that you need to break, and you have guys that are doing things for you, and you constantly have to make sure that they have the tools because they break them constantly. It gets tedious and not fun. And games should primarily be fun. Right now, with at least Askas that I talked about, they have added so you can now replant trees and you can now redo caves so they have more iron. So you don't deplete that and end up just being pretty much locked out of the game, so to speak, as you run out of needed things. Valheim. Valheim is very close to Enshrouded, solo Viking kind of thing. I enjoyed it when I was playing it. I would say there's a B tier kind of game. You have these different biomes. You have these different Norse kind of bosses that you need to defeat in order to move on. It's a really cool art style, but honestly, when you start doing it, it just feels like you're doing the same thing. You know how in order to do that biome, you need to have these kind of equipment and gear, and then you upgrade that. Now, in order to do this biome and fight this boss, you have to do this equipment and gear, etc. So much of its progression is kind of like pushed by you have to have the right gear in order to go to the next step. Very RPE-ish, if you want to say that. Graphics and style, very nice. Open world, I think it is somewhat seeded. That there's different kind of slight changes to the world. I'm not entirely sure. I played it for a while. I haven't replayed it many times enough to think that that's it. It has a story to it. Survival mechanics is the boilerplate things that you expect. Eat, drink, die, drop your stuff, go back, get that. And then a bunch of combat options, pretty much like Enshrouded, where you have different weapon styles that you can use. Probably not the most fair explanation of Valheim. A lot of people love it. I just haven't gotten really deep into it, but I enjoyed it enough to be somewhat up there. No F yet, probably because I don't buy that stuff. Forest. Let's put that between an E and F. I'll be honest with you. There are some out there that have made some awesome videos and talked about the mechanics. I just don't like it. You know, the whole idea by mutant cannibals is just not very enjoyable. And it's kind of like the Sons of the Forest. Spawner mechanics, don't care for it. Raid at night, break your stuff, don't care for it. It is... I felt less creeped out by the different monsters than just I felt it was so tedious. It's crafting. You can certainly build a fort, but somehow they can always seem to spawn very close or inside. Don't care for that. The graphics style, ragdolly, didn't care for that. Survival mechanics is standard boilerplate. You, of course, there's the limitation on ammo and things of that nature. The story itself towards the end, maybe I'm not really fair to that game because I do believe it has somewhat of a cult following as far as for what it did back when it was released. It just didn't click with me. Sorry to say. Maybe I'm the problem here, but that's just the way it is. Now, I've gone on for a long time with a lot of different games. Let me know what you think. What are the kind of type games, or have I been unfair with the different ratings here of these? A lot of these are still in early access, which means they are going to improve over time. Some of them are in full release, certainly like Conan, where they still are planning new DLCs and quality of life improvements, so things are always going to improve. And let me know which one is your favorite, and how you just come back and just playing that over and over and over again. And you have a terrific day, terrific rest of the weekend, and next weekend too. A terrific life. May everything just fall your way. That's how it should be. And as I always say, goodbye and adieu.